Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from rSpace. There is a difference between giving up and knowing when you've had enough. It's important to know when we have had enough and move on from the people who keep ruining our happiness. Today on rSpace, we learn our own worth. Our first OP listened to his gut. Need advice for an unusual affair in the aftermath. Hey guys, been on here the last few days reading these horror stories. It's good to know I'm not alone. My situation is a bit unusual. About 4.5 months ago, I found out my wife was having an affair. It wasn't hard to uncover, seeing as she was terrible at hiding it. When I confronted her, we talked for 4 hours and made her tell me every detail. It took some coaxing, but after about 20 minutes, she started talking. She said some crazy stuff to me that night, and the worst part about it was the way she said them. All nonchalant, like she was chatting with a girlfriend at a coffee shop. One example is when it got to the sex, I asked her was it the same as what we do or was it different? In my mind, I was thinking positions. What she said was like a dagger in my chest. She said it was different because it was passionate. I told her, "You're saying in the 10 years we've been together we haven't had passionate sex?" And her response was, maybe on our honeymoon." The worst part was how she said it, casual as can be. So I thought this girl is a narcissist, but I'm in doubt because narcissists have smarts and cunning. How I found out was the first night she had a condom sticking out of her wallet in the living room. The next night, I checked her laptop and she didn't realize it was connected to her phone. Maybe you guys can explain this one to me because to this day, I still don't get what she did. I went on her photos and she screenshotted her entire conversation with this guy and deleted it one by one. It was all one of her deleted files. Maybe you can tell me what a screen recording is? It's only for iPhones. Some of the screenshots she took had timestamps at the bottom. I made her text him that night and tell him not to contact her again. The next morning, she tells me he texted her, which I appreciated. If he was smart, he would have left it alone, but his response was, "Are you okay?" Right then, from that response, I knew that weasel would keep trying. I told her as much. I forgot to mention that when I confronted her, I told her that we were done because that's the one thing I couldn't forgive, and I told her for our daughter's sake, she can stay here until she finds a place. A sleepless week goes by, and the only thing I noticed is that she disconnected her phone from her laptop. No biggie. She goes out for a birthday party that weekend, and she did go where she said she did because I checked the bank account. However, come home drunk, she maybe has a drink twice a year, goes into the bathroom for half an hour, and then to bed without even saying a word. First red flag of the night. Half hour later, I go in the garage and her car is not there. I think, sure, she's had too much to drink, but at that point, my gut was screaming at me. So I found her Snapchat password and logged in on my phone. And sure enough, the first person on top of her recents is the guy she had an affair with. By the way, she told me he had no social media. All I see is the last thing he said was, "Show me." So while I was in her account, I changed it from delete instantly to save for 24 hours. That's going to be important later. At this point, it's 4 a.m., so I wait until I can't take it anymore and wake her up at 7 a.m. asking where her car was. I told her to call one of her girlfriends to pick her up and get her car and walked downstairs. I was still logged into her account on my phone, and in the 5 seconds it took me to walk downstairs and open my phone, she snapped him good morning with a nude picture. The worst part about that was the picture was from our wedding night. Anyways, she leaves to get her car, and I'm sitting there thinking, how could she tear my heart out twice in 1 week? She comes back and I tell her we need to talk. Her response is, "Ugh, this again?" I asked her if she texted him last night. She denied it on a technicality, so I asked did she snap him. She denied. So in my anger, I rolled my shirt up and did the pose she did and said, "Does good morning ring a bell?" Her eyes lit up in immediate anger, and she started yelling and hitting me. Relax, guys. My 2-year-old hits harder. I told her I'm leaving for a few days and for her to pack her stuff up. As I'm walking out the door, she asks when I'll be back, and I was confused because I couldn't have been any clearer. She asked if I was coming back that day, and I kid you not, because "I'm supposed to go to a party later today." I looked at her in the eye and said, "There is truly something wrong with your head," and left. I'm getting to it, guys, I promise. A few days goes by, and my daughter keeps calling out to "Mommy," and it broke my heart, so I caved and let her back in. She deleted her entire Snapchat when she came back and promised to wait until we were divorced. A few more days goes by on that following weekend, and she's supposed to go to some food festival with her girlfriend that Sunday. Saturday night, My gut starts screaming again, so while she's giving our daughter a bath, the only time her phone is not in her hand, I go to open it, and she changed the passcode. The first thing that pops in my head is our daughter's birthday. It opens on the first try, and sure enough, she once again is talking to that guy on Snapchat, talking about meeting up at the festival. I started getting a guy feeling when I got a notification earlier that day that she was back on Snap. I go on a walk until our daughter goes to sleep. I come back home with her completely unaware that I saw her phone. I come up with a plan to mess with her on my walk, knowing exactly how it was going to play out. When I got back, I asked her politely to see her phone because I had a feeling. She willingly showed me her phone 2 days before that. She says, "Fine," goes downstairs, and all I hear out loud is, "No," and she locks herself in the bathroom. I calmly walk down there and knock, asking if everything is okay. She responds with, "I can't believe you don't trust me," yada yada. She opens the door after a few minutes and gives me her phone. Long story short, I gave her 10 minutes to get out. Here's the kicker. 2 months later, I get a call from my dad that she's in the hospital with a giant brain tumor. I go there because as much as I hate her, she is my child's mother, and it's the right thing to do. The whole drive there, I'm thinking, well, that explains her insane behavior for the last couple of months. I tell her that, and she's in complete denial. They take it out the next day. 2 weeks later, test results come back really bad. She's got maybe 18 months. To this day, she is in complete denial about it. I was going to be supportive, but when I put her phone away at the hospital, I found an empty bottle of sex lube in her purse. That's important because one of the last things I said to her when I finally kicked her out was, "If you ever loved me at all in the 10 years we've been together, just start telling me the truth and wait until we're divorced." So after that, I cut all contact with her. How can I talk to someone who is so detached from reality? Everyone has been telling me to forgive her because it was the tumor, but that's bull. She knew what she was doing. There's a lot more details of this story, but I've rambled on long enough. Let me know if you want more details and I'll post the rest on another day. Thanks for the help, guys. Oh my gosh, OP. I feel like it might not all be just from the tumor. It's hard to imagine thinking that anyone is capable of hurting their partners like that. That being said, I think everyone is capable of free will and making choices. She willingly made choices that would ruin and totally disregard your marriage and the vows you both took. Tumor or not, you're allowed to not like her right now. She betrayed your trust and she continued to do so and lie about it. And to say the sex with him was more passionate? I feel like passion in a relationship is something that we have to constantly be mindful of and work on to try to keep the spark alive, to try to make it new and fun throughout the years before we run off and try to find gratification elsewhere. Somewhere along the years, something changed and deteriorated. Passion and intimacy are integral for a relationship, specifically a marriage. Moreover, I think the first sign of failing in marriage is a lack of intimacy. What do you think? Our next OP isn't the person she once was. Would you consider a betrayal of trust to be cheated on? I have been following this sub for a while, reading many stories and wondering if I should tell mine and ask for input. I think my relationship is over, so here I am. I will try to be as brief as possible so I can actually have people read and share their input. If you need more details, I will be glad to share. I just want to be as straightforward as possible. Me, 26 female, and my boyfriend, 27 male, met 5 years ago on Tinder during 2017. We met and it was love at first sight. Started dating immediately. Within a year of being together, I found out about his first love who had dumped him a couple of months before we met. They had been together since high school, lived together, were engaged until one day she woke up and dumped him and left without ever turning back and without a reason. He thinks it's because she wanted to have a baby and he didn't at the moment. Who knows? He was very depressed after she left him, and still while we were dating, but things have gotten better. I think somehow us being together has been good for him. We had our roller coaster during the first year when I found out the story, but hey, here we are. As of today, we have been living together since 2019. He bought a house in 2020, and we both live here. It is our home. We have had a pretty happy life. No complaints even with my low libido. We have made it work this whole time. If you asked me a year ago if I was happy, I would have said yes without hesitation. In February of 2022, after a heart-to-heart conversation, he gave me a promise ring after stating he would never want to get married as she broke his heart back then. I accepted it even though I wanted to get married, but I said I would make it work because I love him, and I was fine with it. It was our promise to love each other no matter what. In March of this year, I saw him texting her while we were together at an amusement park. I could hear my heart pounding. I asked why, and he said she had texted him a few days earlier. I had noticed him acting strange that week, but hey, we all have our days. so I had not read further into it. That night, when we got home after having a terrible day at the park, I confronted him and he stated they were trying to have closure, that she had a 1.5-year-old kid. She was going through a divorce and wanted to reach out to him to try and understand what had happened. We had a pretty rough couple of weeks after that night because I will use bullet points to make it shorter. The following night, he left for 5 hours at night to speak on the phone with her. She lives in another state. She told him she wanted to be back with him, that she still loved him. He kept talking to her behind my back after I asked him to stop, and he agreed and said he was not going to. Video calls during the day, long drives at night. During this whole situation, I looked on his phone. I know this was an invasion of his privacy, and I discovered that during 2018 to 2019, he was texting her, even asked her to go on vacation with him to a beautiful place that he took me after she said no. Since then, we made peace, decided to move on, work things out. I have read countless blogs of how to forgive and forget, but the truth is that I can't move on. I changed. I can tell I am not the same person I was. I am not happy anymore. I don't think I love him as I used to. Before, I would die before letting anything happen to him. Now I just think, F him. I love you, but F you. You need to hurt. And I make big deals out of nothing. Before, we would never argue. Maybe once every 2 months. Now, any tiny thing I want to argue. Be mad. We've had the conversation a handful of times where he has asked me why I act the way I do. He even said I'm acting as a B. And when I tell him the truth, that I'm still hurt, I can't let go. He says it's stupid, that he didn't hurt me, that I am making a big deal out of nothing, that I decide to be hurt, and I don't want to move on. Today, we had a fight about a house chore where we both yelled at each other, said we are tired of this crap, and then he said he wants me out of his house by the end of the week. Has anyone been in a similar situation? What suggestions would you have? Ask for suggestions. Poncho2504 comes through. He literally carried on an emotional affair with his ex. Your feelings are entirely valid. You will never be able to love him the same way you did before you found out. That's gone. It's dead. Your choice depends on whether you feel you could fall in love with him again, despite knowing he was never really in the relationship in the first place. The OP replies, and I agree with you about the emotional affair. I read about it in my countless blog readings, but to this day, he still denies any type of wrongdoing. In his opinion, I'm the one who is wrong about it. He states that if the roles were reversed, he would support me reaching out to my ex, which is the biggest BS you could say. And the truth is, I don't know if I can go back to normal. It has already been 5 months, and I can't let go. WearyTap9292 has one last comment. Yes, I have been in similar enough situations to be able to tell you that it's over. Actually, it doesn't sound like you were anything more than a stand-in for his ex, so I doubt he was ever serious about you. It sounds superficial at best. You will never become the woman he's really in love with. In my experience, the escalated fighting is what precedes the divorce. Move on. I think you had a right to invade his privacy when he continuously disregarded your request to not speak to her again. The fact that he thinks it's not a big deal also is hurtful. He's betrayed your trust more than once, going behind your back to ask her to go on vacation, then taking you. At the same time, I'm assuming he only gave you a promise ring because he was expecting to get back together with you. Why would he commit to you when there's still hope of committing to her? He's not invested in you, and I'm so sorry. You have every right to feel hurt and angry right now. What you thought was real isn't. You resent him, deservedly so. You say it yourself. You can't move on. You've changed. In fact, you've changed for the better. You don't deserve that nonsense anymore. It's time to move on to bigger and better things and to people who want to invest their time and their heart to you fully. What are your suggestions for the OP? And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Also, please let us know what you thought of today's content in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.